The kitchen timer was beeping when I heard the car pull into the driveway. I was 72 years old, and in all those years, I had learned to read the sound of an engine the way some people read faces. This one came too fast, braked too hard, and the door slammed with a force that made my good china rattle in the cabinet. Something was wrong. I wiped my hands on my apron and moved toward the front window, my heart already picking up speed in that way it does when a grandmother senses trouble with her babies. Through the lace curtains, I watched my daughter-in-law's car idling in the driveway, exhaust puffing white into the November cold. The back doors opened, and out tumbled my grandbabies. Jeremiah was 8, Zara was 6, and little Amara had just turned 4. They moved like shadows, heads down, shoulders hunched against more than just the wind. Jeremiah was carrying both his own backpack and Zara's, and Amara clung to her brother's jacket with one small fist. They didn't run to my door the way they usually did, didn't call out for Grandma DeeDee, didn't race to see who could ring the doorbell first. They walked like children who had forgotten how to be children. I opened the door before they reached it, and the smile I had ready froze on my face. Jeremiah's eyes met mine for just a second before dropping to his feet. Zara's lip was trembling, and Amara, my baby girl who never stopped talking, never stopped singing, was silent as a stone. Behind them, the car window rolled down halfway. My daughter-in-law, Simone, didn't even turn her head to look at them. She just waved one hand in a dismissive gesture and called out, "Pick them up Sunday evening, 6 o'clock sharp." The window rolled back up before I could respond. The car reversed too quickly, and I had to step forward to make sure none of the children were too close to the tires. Then she was gone, speeding down my quiet street like the devil himself was chasing her. "Come on in, babies," I said, keeping my voice soft and warm, even though my insides had gone cold. Grandma made cookies, chocolate chip, just how you like them. Jeremiah herded his sisters inside, and I noticed how he positioned himself between them and the door, as if something might come through it that needed to be guarded against. I noticed how Zara flinched when I reached to help her with her coat. I noticed how Amara's eyes were red and swollen, how her cheeks were sticky with dried tears. I noticed everything. In my 72 years, I had raised 5 children of my own, buried a husband, survived a heart attack, and weathered more storms than I cared to count. I had learned to trust my instincts, and right now every instinct in my body was screaming that something was terribly, desperately wrong. "Jeremiah, baby, why don't you and your sisters go wash up? Bathroom's right where it always is." I kept my tone light, casual, but my eyes were studying every movement, every gesture, every breath. "Yes, ma'am," Jeremiah whispered. His voice cracked on the second word. I watched them disappear down the hallway, Jeremiah still keeping his sisters close, still standing like a soldier guarding something precious. Then I walked to my kitchen, pulled out my phone, and dialed my son. Marcus answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mama! Kids get there okay?" "Marcus Dwayne Robinson," I said, using his full name the way I had when he was a boy and had done something that required answering for. "You need to tell me what's going on in that house." The silence on the other end of the line was answer enough. "Mama, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you dare lie to your mother. I've got 3 traumatized babies in my bathroom right now." Zara flinched when I tried to touch her. Amara's been crying so hard her eyes are swollen. And Jeremiah is walking around like he's trying to protect them from something. "So you're going to tell me right now what's happening, or I'm going to get in my car and come ask Simone myself." Another silence. Then a sigh so heavy I could feel it through the phone. "Mama, it's complicated." "Abuse is never complicated, Marcus. It's always simple. Someone with power is hurting someone without it. Now you tell me true. Is Simone hurting those children?" "Not hitting them," Marcus said quickly. Too quickly. She's been stressed. Work has been difficult. And the kids, they can be a lot, and she just needs some space sometimes." My hand tightened around the phone so hard my knuckles went white. "What does need space mean, Marcus?" Sometimes she yells, and sometimes she doesn't feed them dinner if they don't clean up fast enough, and sometimes she locks them in their rooms. But Mama, it's not. I mean, we all got punished as kids, right? This is just discipline. She's just trying to teach them to behave. I closed my eyes. I had suspected abuse, but hearing it confirmed, hearing my own son make excuses for it, was like a knife to the heart. Marcus, baby, that's not discipline. That's cruelty. You know the difference. Mama, please, if I say something, if I try to stop her, she says she'll leave and take the kids. She'll move out of state and I'll never see them again. She's got family in another state, and she's threatened it before. I can't lose my kids. So instead, you're going to let them be abused? You're going to let them suffer because you're afraid? I'm trying to protect them the best way I know how, Marcus said, and his voice cracked. I work as much as I can so they don't have to be alone with her. I take them out on weekends. I do everything I can, Mama, but if I push too hard, if I try to leave, she'll take them from me. The courts always favor the mother. You know that. I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach through the phone and shake some sense into my son. But I also understood, with a clarity that hurt, that he was caught in a trap with no easy escape. He was trying to shield his children with his own body, but he was only one person, and he couldn't be everywhere at once. How long has this been going on? About a year, maybe longer. It's gotten worse in the last few months. A year. My grandbabies had been suffering for a year, and I hadn't known, hadn't seen, hadn't helped. Marcus, I need you to listen to me. Those children are not going back to that house until we have a plan. Do you understand me? I will fight Simone. I will fight the courts. I will fight God himself if I have to, but I will not send those babies back into that situation. Mama, you can't just keep them. That's kidnapping. Then let her call the police. Let her try to explain to them why her children are terrified of her. Let her try to explain why Zara flinches when someone reaches for her. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with tears. What do I do, Mama? Tell me what to do. You document everything, every incident, every threat, every time she withholds food or locks them in their rooms. You write it down with dates and times. You take pictures if there are any marks. You build a case. And then you file for custody, and you fight like your children's lives depend on it, because they do. She'll destroy me in court. She'll say I was never there, that I worked too much, that I was a bad father. Then you prove her wrong. You show up. You fight. You be the man I raised you to be, not the coward you're acting like right now. The words were harsh, but they needed to be said. Sometimes love requires a hard truth. I'm scared, Mama. I know, baby, but courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear. Now, those children are going to stay with me this weekend, and we're going to have a long talk, and you're going to start preparing to get them out of that house permanently. Are we clear? Yes, ma'am. Good. Now I need to go take care of your babies. You call me tomorrow and we'll make a real plan. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, and I realized I was angrier than I had been in years. Angry at Simone for hurting innocent children. Angry at Marcus for not fighting harder. Angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. But anger, I had learned long ago, was only useful if you channeled it into action. I took a deep breath, smoothed my apron, and walked down the hallway toward the bathroom. The door was open a crack, and I could hear Jeremiah's voice, low and urgent. Don't tell Grandma. If we tell, Mama said she'll never let us see Grandma again. She said she'll move us far away where nobody can find us. So we have to be good. We have to pretend everything is fine. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I pushed the door open gently. All 3 children looked up at me with wide, frightened eyes. Jeremiah stepped in front of his sisters instinctively, and I saw in that moment how much weight this little boy was carrying. 8 years old, and already he felt responsible for protecting everyone. Babies, I said softly, kneeling down so I was at their level. My knees protested, but I ignored the pain. I need you to listen to Grandma very carefully. There is nothing you could do, nothing you could say, nothing in this whole wide world that would make me stop loving you. You understand? Your mama lied to you. I will always be here. Always. No matter what. Zara's face crumpled, and she started to cry. Not the loud wailing of a child seeking attention, but the silent, desperate sobs of someone who had learned that crying brought punishment. I opened my arms, moving slowly so I wouldn't startle her, and after a moment of hesitation, she collapsed into my embrace. It's okay, baby girl. You're safe here. You're safe with Grandma. Amara was next, clinging to my neck with a desperation that broke my heart. Jeremiah stood apart, trying to be strong, trying to be the man of the group. I reached out one hand to him. You too, Jeremiah. You've been so strong, baby. You've been taking care of your sisters so well, but you're still a child, and you deserve to be taken care of too. Come here. He hesitated for just a moment, and then the dam broke. He fell into my arms, and all three of them cried like they had been holding it in for months. Maybe they had. I held them and rocked them and whispered every word of comfort and love I knew. I told them they were safe. I told them they were precious. I told them that what was happening to them was not their fault, was never their fault, could never be their fault. And as I held my grandbabies and felt their small bodies shake with sobs, I made a silent vow. I would protect them. I would fight for them. I would burn the world down if that's what it took to keep them safe. But first, I needed to know exactly what we were dealing with. After they had cried themselves out, I got them settled at the kitchen table with milk and cookies. Real food would come later, but right now, they needed comfort. I pulled up a chair and sat with them, letting them eat in silence until some of the tension had left their shoulders. I need you to tell me the truth, I said gently. I know you're scared. I know your mama told you not to say anything. But the only way I can help you is if I know what's happening. And I promise you, on everything I hold sacred, that I will protect you. No matter what she threatened, I will not let her hurt you anymore. Jeremiah looked at his sisters, then back at me. He was doing calculations in his head, weighing risks, trying to decide if the danger of telling was greater than the danger of staying silent. An 8-year-old child should never have to make calculations like that. She gets really angry, Jeremiah said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Like, really, really angry, over small things. If we leave a toy out, or if we're too loud, or if we don't do exactly what she says exactly when she says it. What does she do when she gets angry? Jeremiah looked down at his cookie. She yells, a lot. She says we're stupid and worthless and that she wishes we'd never been born. She says we ruined her life. Each word was a dagger. I kept my face calm, but inside I was screaming. What else? Sometimes she doesn't let us eat. She says if we don't clean up fast enough, we don't deserve dinner. Or if we cry, she says we can go hungry until we learn to stop being babies. I looked at Zara and Amara. They were both staring at their cookies like they might be taken away at any moment. Has she ever hit you? Jeremiah shook his head. Not really. She grabs us sometimes, hard enough to leave marks, and she pushes us, but she doesn't hit with her hand or anything. Not really. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. To this child, being grabbed and pushed didn't count as hitting. He had normalized violence to the point where he didn't even recognize it as abuse. Jeremiah, baby, that is hitting. Grabbing you hard enough to leave marks is hitting. Pushing you is hitting. You understand? What she's doing is wrong. He looked up at me with eyes full of confusion and pain. But Daddy says we just have to be better. He says if we're good enough, if we're quiet enough, if we clean up fast enough, then Mama won't get mad. Your daddy is wrong, I said firmly. Listen to me, all three of you. Adults are supposed to take care of children. Feed them, keep them safe, love them. When an adult hurts a child, it's always the adult's fault. Always. You could be the most perfect children in the world, and it still wouldn't be enough because the problem isn't you. The problem is her. Zara spoke for the first time since arriving. She locked me in the closet. Her voice was so small I had to lean in to hear her. I was scared of the dark and I cried, so she locked me in the closet for the whole night. I wet myself because I couldn't get out to go to the bathroom. Then she got even more mad. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I blinked them back. I couldn't break down in front of these children. They needed me to be strong. When did this happen, sweetheart? Last week, when Daddy was at work late. And did you tell Daddy? Zara shook her head. Mama said if I told, she'd do it again, but for longer. She said I'd learn to love the dark. Amara, who had been silent through all of this, suddenly spoke up. She pulled my hair. The 4-year-old lifted her hand to the side of her head. Really hard. I thought it was going to come out. I was eating my peas too slow. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. The children flinched, and I immediately sat back down, furious at myself for scaring them. I'm sorry, babies. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the situation. But I'm not mad at you. Never at you. I took a deep breath and reached for my phone. I need to take some pictures of any marks or bruises. Can you show me? Jeremiah pulled up his sleeve. There on his upper arm were 4 oval bruises, perfectly spaced. Fingerprints. Someone had grabbed him hard enough to bruise, and from the color, it had happened recently, within the last few days. I took pictures, my hands steady even though my heart was racing. Then Zara showed me bruises on her arm and shoulder. Amara had a mark on her scalp, though it was hard to see through her hair. I documented everything, thanking God that I had thought to do this, even as I hated that it was necessary. Okay, I said when I was finished. Here's what's going to happen. You 3 are going to stay with Grandma for the weekend, just like your mama said. We're going to have fun. We're going to make cookies and watch movies, and maybe go to the park if the weather's nice. And you're not going to worry about anything. You're just going to be kids. Can you do that? They nodded, but the fear was still there in their eyes. Fear that had been beaten into them over months of abuse. Fear that wouldn't disappear with a single weekend of love and cookies. And one more thing, I said, looking each of them in the eye. From now on, you tell Grandma everything. Every single thing that happens at home. Everything your mama says, everything she does. Even if she tells you not to tell, even if she threatens you, you tell Grandma. Because I'm building a case and I'm going to make sure you never have to be scared again. Do you understand? A case? Jeremiah asked. A case to prove to the judge that you should live with your daddy full time and your mama shouldn't be allowed to hurt you anymore. Hope flickered in his eyes, but it was immediately followed by fear. But what if the judge doesn't believe us? What if they make us go back? Then Grandma will fight harder, and if that doesn't work, Grandma will fight harder still. I will not stop fighting until you're safe. I promise you that on my life. The rest of the evening I spent trying to return some normalcy to their lives. We baked another batch of cookies, and this time I let them make a mess. Flour on the floor, chocolate chips eaten straight from the bag, sticky fingerprints on every surface. The kind of mess that children should be allowed to make. The kind of mess that comes from joy instead of fear. We watched a movie, curled up together on the couch under my big quilted blanket. Jeremiah fell asleep first, his head on my shoulder, his mouth slightly open in the way of children in deep sleep. Zara was next, curled against my side like a small cat. Amara lasted the longest, fighting sleep like she was afraid of what might happen if she closed her eyes. "It's okay, baby girl," I whispered. "You can sleep. Grandma's going to stay right here and keep watch. Nothing bad is going to happen while you're with me." Finally, her eyes drifted closed. I sat there in the flickering light of the television, 3 small bodies pressed against mine, and I planned. I planned like a general preparing for war, because that's what this was. A war for the safety and future of 3 innocent children. I thought about who I needed to call. A lawyer, certainly. One who specialized in family law and custody cases. I had some money saved up, enough to hire someone good. I thought about documentation. The pictures I had taken were a start, but I needed more. Medical records if there were any, school reports, anything that would show a pattern of neglect or abuse. I thought about my son, and how I was going to have to push him harder than I'd ever pushed him before. He was scared, I understood that. The family court system was notoriously biased toward mothers, and the threat of Simone moving out of state with the children was real. But fear couldn't be allowed to paralyze him, not when his children's safety was at stake. And I thought about Simone. I tried to understand how someone could look at these 3 beautiful, innocent children and choose to hurt them. I tried to find compassion, tried to imagine what pain or trauma in her own life might have led her to this point. But mostly, I just felt cold rage. She had been given the precious gift of 3 children to love and nurture, and instead, she had chosen cruelty. There would be no forgiveness for me, not for this. Around midnight, I carefully extracted myself from the pile of children and carried them one by one to the guest bedroom. I had made up the big bed with fresh sheets and extra pillows, and I tucked each of them in with a tenderness that came from decades of mothering. Jeremiah stirred as I pulled the blanket up to his chin. "Grandma?" he mumbled, still mostly asleep. "I'm here, baby. Don't leave. I'm not going anywhere. Grandma's going to sleep in the chair right here. I'll be here all night." He settled back into sleep, reassured. I pulled the old recliner from the corner of the room and positioned it where I could see all 3 of them. Then I sat down, pulled a blanket over my legs, and kept my vigil. I didn't sleep. How could I sleep when my grandbabies had been suffering and I hadn't known? How could I rest when there was so much to do, so many plans to make, so many battles to prepare for? Instead, I sat in the dark and I thought and I planned and I prayed. I prayed for wisdom. I prayed for strength. I prayed for the right words to say and the right actions to take. And I prayed that somehow, some way, we would all get through this with as little additional trauma as possible. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the curtains, I heard my phone buzz, a text from Marcus. "How are they?" I looked at the 3 sleeping children, their faces peaceful in sleep in a way they probably never were at home. "Alive," I texted back. "We need to talk. Come by at 10. Don't tell Simone." His response came quickly. "Okay." I set the phone down and watched my grandbabies sleep. The sun rose slowly, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. It was going to be a long day, a long battle, maybe a long war. But I was ready. I had faced hard things before. I had survived losses and tragedies and heartbreaks. I had raised 5 children on my own after my husband died. I had buried friends and family. I had weathered every storm life had thrown at me. This would be no different. I would weather this storm too. And on the other side, those 3 children would be safe. I had to believe that, had to hold on to it like a lifeline. Because the alternative, the possibility that I might fail them, was unthinkable. Marcus arrived at 10 o'clock exactly. I had gotten the children fed and settled with coloring books in the living room before I let him in. One look at his face told me he hadn't slept either. His eyes were red-rimmed, his clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. Or tried to sleep and failed. "Kitchen," I said shortly, and he followed me without a word. I poured us both coffee and sat down across from him at the table. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I was trying to organize my thoughts, trying to figure out how to say what needed to be said without completely destroying my relationship with my son. "I saw the bruises," I said finally. Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. "Mama, I didn't know. She must have done that this week while I was traveling for work. I swear if I'd known." "You did know," I interrupted. "Maybe not about these specific bruises, but you knew she was hurting them. You told me yourself that she locks them in their rooms, that she withholds food, that she screams at them and calls them names. You knew, Marcus. You just didn't want to see how bad it really was." He put his head in his hands. What was I supposed to do? File for divorce and risk losing them completely? At least when I'm there, I can protect them some of the time. At least I can make sure she doesn't go too far. Except she is going too far. She's been going too far. Zara got locked in a closet all night and wet herself because she couldn't get out. Amara got her hair pulled for eating too slowly. Jeremiah has bruises shaped like fingerprints on his arm. How much further does she need to go before you consider it too far? Does she need to break bones? Send them to the hospital? "Don't!" Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Don't act like I don't care. They're my children. I love them more than anything." "Then act like it. Love isn't passive, Marcus. Love fights. Love protects. Love doesn't make excuses and hope things get better on their own." "I'm trying." "You're trying to avoid making a hard choice. You're trying to keep everyone happy, keep the peace, maintain the status quo. But you can't keep everyone happy when one person is an abuser. There is no middle ground here. There is no compromise. Either you stand with your children, or you stand with their abuser. And right now, by doing nothing, you're choosing her." The words hung in the air between us, harsh and unforgiving. Marcus looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. "I'm so scared, Mama. I'm scared of losing them. I'm scared of what she'll do if I try to leave. She's threatened to kill herself. She's threatened to kill them and herself. She's threatened to disappear with them where I'll never find them. How do I fight someone who's willing to go that far?" My anger softened slightly. Not much, but slightly. This was more complicated than I'd initially thought. Simone wasn't just abusive, she was potentially dangerous, unstable, the kind of person who might actually follow through on those threats. "Have you documented the threats?" "Some of them. She mostly says them when she's angry, and then later she apologizes and says she didn't mean it. She says she's just stressed and overwhelmed." "The cycle of abuse," I said. Explosion, apology, honeymoon period, tension building, explosion again. It's textbook, and it will never stop on its own. It only gets worse. "So what do I do? Tell me what to do, because I don't know anymore." I pulled out my phone and showed him the pictures I'd taken of the children's bruises. He stared at them for a long time, his face going pale. "You file for emergency custody," I said. "Today, right now. We call a lawyer, we show them these pictures, we get a statement from the children, and we file for emergency custody based on documented abuse. We don't tell Simone. We don't give her warning. We just do it. She'll fight. She'll lie. She'll say I'm making it up, that I'm trying to steal the kids. Then we'll have evidence and she won't. These bruises are real, Marcus. The children's fear is real. Their statements are real. What judge is going to look at this and decide the children are better off with her?" "Plenty of them," Marcus said bitterly. "You don't know how the system works, Mama. Mothers get the benefit of the doubt. Fathers have to prove abuse beyond a shadow of doubt, and even then, the best we can usually hope for is supervised visitation for the mother, not full custody for the father. Then we prove it beyond a shadow of doubt. We get medical exams, psychological evaluations, school reports, everything. We build a case so airtight that no judge can ignore it." Marcus was quiet for a long time. I could see him warring with himself, fear battling with love, self-preservation battling with the need to protect his children. "If I do this," he said finally, "there's no going back. Our marriage will be over. My kids will grow up in a broken home. They'll be traumatized by the custody battle. They'll have to testify in court about what their mother did to them. Is that really better than the situation they're in now?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Absolutely yes. Because right now they're being abused every single day. They're living in fear. They're developing trauma that will last a lifetime. At least if we fight, there's a chance for something better. At least if we fight, they'll know that someone loved them enough to protect them. I need time to think." "No," I said firmly. "You need to act. Thinking time is over. These children have waited long enough for someone to save them. Mama, please, just give me a few days. Let me talk to a lawyer, get advice, figure out the best way to approach this." I wanted to scream at him, wanted to shake him until he understood the urgency. But I also knew that pushing too hard might make him dig in his heels out of sheer defensiveness. "You have until Monday," I said. "Monday morning you call a lawyer, you file the paperwork, you start the process, and until then, these children stay with me. I'm not sending them back to that house. Simone will lose her mind if I tell her the kids aren't coming home Sunday." "Then let her lose her mind. What's she going to do? Call the police?" "Let her try to explain to them why her children are covered in bruises." Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. "You don't understand. You don't understand what she's like when she's angry. She'll destroy me. She'll destroy my career, my reputation, everything. And you're going to let the fear of that stop you from protecting your children?" He didn't answer, couldn't answer, because we both knew what the right choice was, even if he wasn't ready to make it yet. "I need to go," he said finally. "I need to think." "Fine, think. But those kids stay here. And Marcus? I waited until he looked at me. If you choose her over them, if you send them back into that house knowing what you know now, I will never forgive you. You understand? You will have lost me as well as them. His face crumpled. Mama, don't say that. I mean it. I didn't raise a coward. I didn't raise a man who would sacrifice his children's safety for his own comfort. So you figure out who you're going to be. The man who fights for his kids, or the man who lets them suffer to avoid a difficult divorce. He left without saying goodbye to the children. I heard his car start, heard him drive away, and I stood at the window wondering if I had pushed too hard or not hard enough. Wondering if he would step up, or if I was going to have to find another way to save these children. Behind me, I heard small footsteps. I turned to find all 3 children standing in the doorway, their faces anxious. Was that Daddy? Jeremiah asked. Yes, baby. Is he mad at us? The question broke my heart. No, honey. He's not mad at you. He's just dealing with some grown-up things. But he loves you very much. Never doubt that. Are we going home tomorrow? Zara's voice was small and scared. I knelt down and gathered all 3 of them close. No, babies. You're going to stay with Grandma for a while longer. Is that okay? The relief on their faces was answer enough. They nodded eagerly, and Amara threw her arms around my neck. I like it here, she whispered. You don't yell. I held them tight, blinking back tears. Grandma will never yell at you. Grandma will always keep you safe. I promise. The rest of the weekend passed in a strange mixture of normalcy and tension. On the surface, we did ordinary grandmother-grandchildren things. We baked cookies and bread. We went to the park despite the cold, and I pushed them on the swings until my arms ached. We watched movies and read stories and played board games. But underneath the normalcy was a current of fear. Fear that Sunday would come and they'd have to go home. Fear that their mother would appear at the door. Fear that this safe haven was temporary, and soon they'd be back in the nightmare. I saw it in the way Jeremiah kept checking the locks on the doors, in the way Zara startled at every loud noise, in the way Amara clung to me constantly, as if afraid I might disappear if she let go. On Sunday morning, my phone started buzzing. Text after text from Simone. Where are my children? Why isn't Marcus answering his phone? I'm coming to get them right now. You have no right to keep them from me. I'm calling the police. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. She's threatening to call the police, I said, without preamble. I know, she's been calling me all morning. I told her the kids wanted to stay with you an extra day or two, and she lost it. What did you tell her? I told her we'd talk about it when I got home from my business trip. You're not on a business trip. She doesn't know that. I checked into a hotel. I needed space to think. Marcus, you don't have time to think. She's threatening police. That means we need to act now. Today. Before she has a chance to cover her tracks or coach the children or do anything else to undermine our case. I called a lawyer, Marcus said, and I felt a surge of relief. Friday afternoon. I have an appointment tomorrow morning first thing. She says, based on what I told her, we have grounds for emergency custody. She's going to file the papers tomorrow. Thank God, I breathed. Okay. Okay, that's good. What about Simone calling the police? Let her call them. When they show up, show them the bruises. Tell them what the kids have said. Let them document it. It'll only help our case. He was right. I knew he was right. But the thought of police showing up, of putting the children through more trauma, made me want to weep. The kids are scared, I said. They think they have to go home today. Tell them they don't. Tell them they're staying with you until Daddy sorts some things out. And Mama, his voice cracked, thank you for being strong enough to do what I couldn't. You're doing it now. That's what matters. We hung up and I went to find the children. They were in the living room playing quietly with blocks, but their hearts weren't in it. They kept glancing at the clock, at the door, waiting for the axe to fall. Babies, I said, sitting down with them. I have good news. You're going to stay with Grandma for a little while longer. Your daddy needs to sort some things out, and until he does, you're going to be right here with me. We're not going home? Jeremiah asked, and the hope in his voice was painful to hear. Not today. Not for a while. What about Mama? Zara asked. Won't she be mad? Your mama's feelings are not your responsibility. You're children. You deserve to be safe and happy and cared for, and that's what you're going to be here. At 2 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. My heart jumped into my throat, but I forced myself to stay calm. I looked through the peephole and saw 2 police officers standing on my porch. Stay in the living room, I told the children. Everything's okay. Grandma just needs to talk to these officers for a minute. I opened the door. Both officers were young, professional-looking. One was a woman, which I took as a good sign. Ma'am, we got a call from a woman who says you're refusing to return her children. She wants us to escort her to pick them up. Officers, I'm the children's grandmother. Their father asked me to keep them for the weekend, and I'm extending that stay because I have evidence that they're being abused in their home. I kept my voice calm and factual. I have photographs of bruises. I have statements from the children, and I'm more than happy to show you everything. The officers exchanged glances. Ma'am, we can't just take your word for it. We need to see the children, make sure they're okay. Of course. Come in. I led them into the living room where the children were huddled together on the couch. The moment Jeremiah saw the uniforms, he went white as a sheet. Zara started crying. Amara buried her face in the cushions. The female officer noticed their reaction immediately. Hey, sweethearts, it's okay. We're not here to hurt anyone. We just want to make sure you're safe and happy. Is that okay? Jeremiah nodded slowly, but he didn't relax. I'm Officer Chen, the woman said, crouching down to be at their level. And this is Officer Martinez. Your mama called us because she was worried about you. Can you tell me how you're feeling? Are you okay here with your grandma? The children looked at each other, having a silent conversation with their eyes. Finally, Jeremiah spoke. We want to stay with Grandma. We don't want to go home. Why don't you want to go home? More silent conversation. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Jeremiah said, Because Mama hurts us. The officer's expressions shifted. Officer Martinez pulled out a notepad. Can you tell me more about that, son? And so it began. The children, with halting voices and trembling hands, told the officers everything. Officer Chen took notes. Officer Martinez took pictures of the bruises on their arms and shoulders. They asked gentle questions, never pushing, never forcing, just creating space for the truth to come out. By the end of it, both officers looked grim. Ma'am, Officer Chen said to me, we're going to file a report with Child Protective Services. They'll be contacting you within the next few days to do a full investigation. In the meantime, based on what we've seen and heard, we're not going to force these children to return home. What about their mother? I asked. She's waiting outside in her car. We'll speak with her, explain the situation. If she has a problem with it, she can take it up with the courts. They left, and through the window I watched them approach a car parked across the street. Even from a distance, I could see Simone gesticulating wildly, could imagine the lies and manipulations pouring from her mouth. But the officers were unmoved. After a few minutes, they returned to their patrol car and drove away. Simone's car sat there for another 20 minutes, and then she too drove off. The children had witnessed the whole thing from the window. Now they turned to me with questions in their eyes. What happens now? Jeremiah asked. Now we wait. Some people are going to come talk to you, people whose job it is to protect children. They're going to ask you more questions, and you're going to tell them the truth, just like you told the officers today. And then a judge is going to decide where you should live and whether your mama needs to get help. Can we stay with you? I'm going to do everything in my power to make that happen. But I can't promise, baby. The grown-ups and the courts have to make some decisions first. What I can promise is that I will fight for you with everything I have. That night, after the children had finally fallen asleep, I sat at my kitchen table and cried. I cried for their innocence lost. I cried for the trauma they'd endured. I cried for my son who had waited too long to act. I cried for myself, for the weight of responsibility I'd taken on at an age when I should have been enjoying peaceful retirement. But most of all, I cried with relief. Because we had taken the first step. Because the truth was out there now, documented and witnessed. Because the machinery of justice had been set in motion, and there was no going back. Whatever happened next, whatever battles we had to fight, at least we were fighting. At least these children knew that someone loved them enough to stand up for them. And that, I thought as I dried my tears and headed to bed, was worth everything. The week that followed was a blur of phone calls, appointments, and interviews. On Monday morning, Marcus met with the lawyer, a woman named Patricia Washington, who specialized in family law and custody cases. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes, and a no-nonsense demeanor that I appreciated immediately. She came to my house Monday afternoon to interview me and the children. "I'm not going to lie to you," she said after we'd gone through everything. "This is going to be a difficult case. The court system is biased toward mothers, and Simone is going to fight dirty. She's already started, actually. She filed a counterclaim this morning alleging that Marcus is abusive and that you're helping him kidnap the children." My blood boiled. That's a lie. I know, and we'll prove it's a lie. But it's going to take time and it's going to be ugly. Are you prepared for that? Are the children prepared for that? I looked at Jeremiah, Zara, and Amara sitting on the couch. They looked small and scared, but there was something else there too. A spark of hope that hadn't been there a week ago. "We don't have a choice," I said. "We're already in this. The only way out is through." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Good. Then here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get the children examined by a doctor. We need medical documentation of every bruise, every mark, everything. Second, we're going to get them evaluated by a child psychologist. We need a professional opinion on their mental state and whether they show signs of abuse. Third, we're going to depose everyone who might have witnessed anything. Teachers, neighbors, family members. We're building a fortress of evidence that Simone won't be able to tear down." Over the next few days, we did exactly that. The pediatrician who examined the children was a kind older man who took his time, explaining everything he was doing, making sure the children felt safe. His report was damning: multiple bruises in various stages of healing, evidence of malnutrition, signs of chronic stress and anxiety. He put it all in writing. The child psychologist was a woman named Dr. Harper, and she spent hours with each child individually, then all three together, then me and Marcus. Her evaluation was even more damning than the medical report. Symptoms of complex trauma, hypervigilance, learned helplessness, fear responses that were far beyond normal childhood anxiety. She concluded with a recommendation that the children should not be returned to their mother's care without extensive therapy and supervision. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Friday. Marcus was a wreck. I was a rock. Someone had to be. On Friday morning, we all dressed in our best clothes. Marcus wore a suit. I wore the dress I reserved for church and funerals. The children wore outfits I'd bought them earlier in the week, clean and neat and age-appropriate. We looked like a family, a functional, loving family. Simone had a different strategy. She showed up looking haggard and weepy, playing the role of the grieving mother whose children had been stolen. Her lawyer was a slick young man in an expensive suit who reminded me of a snake. The hearing itself was surreal. We sat in a wood-paneled courtroom that smelled of old paper and furniture polish. The judge was a middle-aged black woman with kind eyes and a stern expression. Judge Richardson, her nameplate said. Simone's lawyer went first, painting Marcus as an absent father who worked too much and paid too little attention to his children. He painted me as an interfering grandmother who had poisoned the children against their mother. He painted the whole thing as a custody grab, a vindictive ex-husband trying to hurt his wife by stealing her children. He was good. I had to give him that. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed him. Then Patricia stood up. She presented the medical reports, the psychological evaluation, the photographs of bruises, the police report from Sunday, the testimony I had given, and Marcus's testimony, and statements from the children's teachers who had noticed behavioral changes over the past year. She built a case brick by brick, fact by fact, until the truth was undeniable. Then, Judge Richardson asked to speak to the children. "I'd like to talk to them in my chambers," she said. Just me and them. No parents, no lawyers. I want to hear from them directly. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Everything hinged on this. If the children were too scared to speak, if Simone had terrorized them into silence, if they couldn't articulate what had been done to them, we might lose. The children filed out of the courtroom, following the judge. Jeremiah looked back at me once, and I gave him a nod of encouragement. You can do this, I tried to say with my eyes. Tell the truth. Be brave. We waited. 20 minutes, 30, 45, the longest 45 minutes of my life. When the judge returned, her expression was carefully neutral. The children came back looking exhausted, but relieved, like they'd just set down a heavy burden. I've heard enough, Judge Richardson said. I'm granting temporary emergency custody to the father, Marcus Robinson, with the children to reside with their paternal grandmother, DeeDee Robinson, until a full custody hearing can be scheduled. The mother, Simone Robinson, is granted supervised visitation only, 2 hours per week at a neutral location with a court-appointed supervisor present. Simone let out a wail that echoed through the courtroom. Her lawyer jumped up, objecting, arguing, but the judge was unmoved. Furthermore, Judge Richardson continued, I'm ordering a full investigation by Child Protective Services. Ms. Simone Robinson is ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation and complete a parenting course before any unsupervised visitation will be considered. This court takes allegations of child abuse extremely seriously, and based on what I've seen and heard today, these allegations appear to have merit. The gavel came down. Boom, the sound of justice. The IEA, we had won. Not the whole war, not yet. But this battle, we had won. Marcus broke down crying right there in the courtroom. I held the children close, all 3 of them, and whispered, You did it. You were so brave. I'm so proud of you. Simone was still wailing, being comforted by her lawyer. As we filed out of the courtroom, she lunged toward us, her face twisted with rage. You'll pay for this, she hissed at me. You'll all pay. Those are my children, mine. Security stepped in before she could get closer. We hurried out of the courthouse and into the parking lot, into the bright afternoon sunlight that felt like freedom. In the car, on the way back to my house, Jeremiah asked, Is it really over? Are we really safe now? Not completely over, I said honestly. There will be more hearings, more meetings. Your mama will get to visit you, but always with someone there to make sure everyone's safe. But the worst is over, baby. The worst is over, and you're never going back to live in that house again. He nodded, processing this. Then he did something he hadn't done all week. He smiled. A real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. Thank you, Grandma. You don't have to thank me, baby. This is what love does. Love protects, love fights, love never gives up. That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus and I sat on my back porch with cups of tea. The night was cold, but we both needed the fresh air, needed the space to process everything that had happened. I almost didn't do it, Marcus said quietly. I almost chickened out. If you hadn't pushed me, if you hadn't been so strong, I would have let fear win, and my kids would still be suffering. But you did do it. That's what matters. You stood up when it counted. I should have stood up sooner, years sooner. You can't change the past. All you can do is move forward. Be the father they need from this moment on. He was quiet for a long time, staring out at the dark yard. I don't know how to do this, Mama. Be a single father, raise 3 kids on my own. You're not on your own. You have me, and you'll figure it out, one day at a time. What if I mess it up? What if I fail them again? Then you'll get up and try again. That's what parents do. We're not perfect, Marcus. We make mistakes. But the difference between a good parent and a bad one isn't perfection. It's the willingness to keep trying, keep learning, keep loving, even when it's hard. He reached over and took my hand. I love you, Mama. Thank you for saving us. I love you too, baby. All of you. That's why I fought. That's why I'll always fight. We sat there in the cold, mother and son. 2 generations joined in the mission to protect the third. Above us, the stars shone clear and bright. Inside, 3 children slept soundly, safe for the first time in a year. It wasn't the ending. There would be more battles ahead, more hearings, more therapy, more healing to be done. The trauma didn't disappear overnight. Jeremiah still checked the locks compulsively. Zara still flinched at sudden movements. Amara still clung to me like I might vanish. But it was a beginning, a chance for something better, a hope for a future where these children could grow up without fear, could learn that love didn't come with conditions, could discover who they were meant to be without the weight of abuse crushing their spirits. In the weeks and months that followed, we settled into a new rhythm. Marcus found a new job with better hours, one that let him be home for dinner every night. He moved into a small house not far from mine, and the children spent weekdays with me while he worked, weekends with him. It wasn't traditional, but it worked. The children started therapy, all 3 of them. Dr. Harper saw them weekly, sometimes individually, sometimes together. She taught them coping strategies for when the nightmares came. She helped them process their trauma in age-appropriate ways. She slowly, carefully, helped them understand that what had happened to them wasn't their fault. Simone's supervised visits were a disaster at first. She couldn't understand why the children were afraid of her, couldn't accept responsibility for what she'd done. She blamed Marcus, blamed me, blamed everyone but herself. The court-appointed supervisor had to end several visits early because Simone became angry and the children became distressed. Eventually, reluctantly, she started the court-ordered therapy and parenting classes. I don't know if she ever truly understood the harm she'd caused, but she learned at least to fake remorse. The visits became less traumatic, though the children never really warmed to her. How could they? Trust, once broken so thoroughly, is nearly impossible to rebuild. 6 months after that first emergency hearing, there was a final custody determination. Marcus was granted full legal and physical custody. Simone was granted 1 supervised visit per week, with the possibility of unsupervised visits in the future if she completed therapy and could demonstrate changed behavior. She didn't fight it. Her lawyer advised against it, probably realizing they'd already lost and further litigation would only make things worse. So she signed the papers, and just like that, it was truly over. That night, we had a celebration, just a small one, at my house. I made a special dinner, all the children's favorite foods. We ate until we were stuffed, and then I brought out a cake I'd ordered specially, with "Welcome Home" written in bright frosting. "This is your forever home now," I told them as we cut the cake, "with Daddy and Grandma. Nobody's going to take you away. Nobody's going to hurt you. You're safe, and you're loved, and you're staying right here with us." Amara, now 5 and much more talkative than when this had all started, asked, "Forever and ever?" "Forever and ever, baby girl." She smiled and took a huge bite of cake, getting frosting all over her face. Zara laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from the belly. Jeremiah relaxed in a way I hadn't seen him relax in months, his shoulders dropping, his face softening. Marcus looked at me across the table, and there were tears in his eyes. But they were good tears. Healing tears. I thought about that November evening when the children had first tumbled out of that car, small and scared and broken. I thought about how far we'd come since then, how many battles we'd fought, how many tears we'd shed, how many times we'd wanted to give up but kept going anyway. It had been worth it. Every sleepless night, every dollar spent on lawyers and therapy, every moment of fear and doubt. Worth it to see these 3 children learning to be children again. Worth it to see them smile and play and argue over who got the bigger piece of cake. This was what victory looked like. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and hard-won and precious beyond measure. As I watched my grandbabies eat their cake and laugh with their father, I felt a peace settle over me that I hadn't felt in a long time. We had done it. Against the odds, against a system that too often fails children, against an abuser who was willing to fight dirty, we had done it. We had saved them. And in saving them, we had saved ourselves. Marcus had found his courage. I had found a new purpose in my retirement years. And the children had found safety and love and the chance to heal. Grandma, Jeremiah said, interrupting my thoughts. Can we have cake for breakfast tomorrow, too? I laughed. We'll see about that, baby. We'll see. But in my heart, I knew the answer was yes. After everything they'd been through, after all the pain and fear and trauma, if these children wanted cake for breakfast, then cake for breakfast they would have. Because that's what grandmothers do. We spoil our grandbabies. We give them extra cookies and let them stay up past bedtime and say yes, when perhaps we should say no. But more than that, we protect them. We fight for them. We love them with a fierceness that knows no bounds and accepts no defeat. And in the end, that love is enough. Not to erase the past, not to undo the damage that was done, but enough to build a future. Enough to create a home where children can be children. Enough to heal, slowly and imperfectly, but heal nonetheless. That night, after Marcus had taken the kids home and I was alone in my quiet house, I sat in my rocking chair and thanked God. Thanked Him for giving me the strength to see what needed to be seen. Thanked Him for giving me the courage to do what needed to be done. Thanked Him for bringing my grandbabies through the fire and out the other side. And I made a promise. A promise that for however many years I had left on this earth, I would continue to be their safe harbor, their protector, their champion. Whatever they needed, whenever they needed it, I would be there. Because that's what love does. Love shows up, love stays, love fights, and love, in the end, always wins. So please tell me what you thought of the story in the comments below, and if you liked this tale, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me to keep creating these wonderful stories. Until tomorrow, all my love.